That all the anti-aircraft fire that you're hearing is firing at nothing, or if it is firing at targets, the targets are too far away to be hit. One of the advantages that the coalition has always said about its airplanes is they can fly far above the range of Iraqi anti-aircraft artillery.
This is Brent Sadler again. Can you hear me, Atlanta?
Yes, we can, Brent. Go ahead.
Okay, I was rather blasted out there, so I lost it for a few moments. I can tell you that there's some smoke drifting about half a mile from where our position is.
We can see it.
It would appear that that is almost certainly the result of the anti-aircraft guns. That certainly was not a hit, as some people here were suggesting. It seems to be the drifting smoke from the ammunition that's been fired over the past 15 or 20 minutes. And as you can hear, it's starting up again. But we see or hear nothing that might indicate what the Iraqis are actually shooting at.
Brent, earlier you said you heard some air raid sirens in a distance. Have you heard those again?
No, indeed. The siren I heard just before all this started was relatively mute, one might say, rather pathetic. It never really started. It was distant. It was one siren. There's been nothing in the center of the capital that comes anywhere near matching the loud air raid warning sirens that we heard consistently 2 years ago.
Brent, is there any indication?
John, again, one of the more surrealistic things about what is going on the streets of Baghdad right now is what the Iraqi people are viewing on Iraqi television right now. It is a replay of that 90-minute speech that President Saddam Hussein gave that you might have seen on CNN several hours ago today. It's a long speech by the president in which he says the Iraqis will never give up to coalition demands that Iraq support the no-fly zone in northern Iraq and southern Iraq, and that the Iraqi people must stand firm until the end on this. That it was, in fact, an indication that the Iraqis were going to fight the coalition and shoot at coalition bombers who violated Iraqi airspace until either the no-fly zones were lifted or until all Iraqi anti-aircraft guns were unable to fire anymore. So the president is again on videotape giving that speech to the Iraqi people. Iraqi TV, unlike television in other parts of the world, has not yet interrupted to tell the people of Iraq that anti-aircraft guns over Baghdad are going wild as they are right now.
John Holloman, David French in Washington, where we just have word that the White House Press Secretary Marlin Fitzwater will speak to the nation on television at 2:15 Eastern Time. That's in about 24 and a half minutes from now. Let's go back to John Holloman as the president of Baghdad speaks to that country.
Remarkable, David, isn't it?
President of Iraq. Go ahead, John.
It sounds like John has lost his communications. Are you picking me up?
Yes, Brent Sadler, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Obviously the result of anti-aircraft.
We hear you both, in fact.
The gases from the anti-aircraft bullets that have gone up into the air. Still no sign on the ground here that anything has come down from the coalition. CNN's Jamie McIntyre reported, I guess, 45 minutes ago now, that perhaps the coalition was not going to do as much in Baghdad as it did during the Gulf War in order to avoid civilian casualties and collateral damage. We, on the ground here, were very heartened to hear that report from McIntyre and hope it is the truth.
Once again, Marlin Fitzwater is going to speak to the nation on television in about 24 minutes. Let's go to the Pentagon now, where Jamie McIntyre is standing by with more news. Jamie.
Well, senior Pentagon officials just a short time ago confirmed to us what in fact is going on in Baghdad. They say there is an attack by U.S. forces on a Baghdad facility in the suburbs of Baghdad. This was attacked by a U.S. cruise missile launched from a ship in the Persian Gulf. The target was part of the nuclear weapons program in Iraq that was located in a suburb of Baghdad. Again, the U.S. says, quoting a senior Pentagon official here, that the target in the area of Baghdad was in a suburb. It was a single target, and it was targeted by a cruise missile, number unknown, fired from a ship in the Persian Gulf. Again, that is what's happening in Baghdad. We still have no confirmation about what would be happening in other areas. We were told all along, sources saying that this attack would be substantially more detailed and more in-depth than the attack on Wednesday involving targets in central Iraq and also missile sites in the north. So that's the latest here from the Pentagon. A senior Pentagon official confirming that what we've been seeing in all this anti-aircraft artillery fire is the result of a U.S.-launched cruise missile on a target in a Baghdad suburb, a part of the nuclear weapons program of Iraq. Jamie McIntyre, CNN Live at the Pentagon.
This is David French. If these pictures are telling us all we need to know, apparently the firing has stopped in Baghdad, where Brent Sadler and John Holloman are still standing by. Brent Sadler, let's bring you in and describe the situation at the moment.
Well, indeed, the anti-aircraft fire lasted some 10 minutes, during which time the city's lights were not doused. There are still cars traveling along the road from my position. I'm standing on top of Iraq's Ministry of Information building, which indeed has its own anti-aircraft defenses, and they were in action over the past few minutes. Now, that statement about a cruise missile attack on a nuclear facility in the southern suburbs of Baghdad is obviously why the anti-aircraft activity was as loud and as potent as it was. The Iraqis, of course, used their ground defenses in that way during the Gulf War 2 years ago, when they had some limited success in downing incoming cruise missiles. We did not see, nor did I hear that cruise flying on its mission, nor did I actually hear the explosion. But for the time being, the guns have gone quiet, and the skies of Baghdad have now gone back to darkness.
All right, Brent, thank you very much. I want to bring in General Perry Smith once again.
The leader needs to use this line for some coordination.
All right, once again, bring in General Perry Smith. We had a report from Jamie McIntyre at the Pentagon saying that a cruise missile attack on a suburb of Baghdad, a single target. What would that target be?
Well, it would likely to be what he said it is, and that is one of those nuclear facilities that there's some just north of Baghdad that have not totally been dismantled, that have a lot to do with the violation of the UN resolutions, as Iraqis have been hardlining on some of that stuff. I think what we're likely to see here now is not something like we saw 2 years ago, not a massive attack, and not attacks in the vicinity of Baghdad close in. I think you're going to see some attacks on the periphery. And the use of the Tomahawk makes a lot of sense because you don't want to lose any pilots, and this is the most heavily defended area. So the report that it may have been a Tomahawk seems to make a lot of sense to me. And clearly, though, there is an attack underway. And it's likely that we're not going to have the reports from Baghdad that will hear the bombs going off in the vicinity, because they just won't be that close, in my judgment.
Marlon Fitzwater at the White House said he was holding a press briefing at 2:15 this afternoon. That's about 20 minutes from now. Would he be holding a briefing if the attack were still on, or would he wait till it was over?
Well, it probably would wait till it's over. And again, remember that we don't have a whole lot of resources over there. The coalition have the French, the British, ourselves. We have the Kitty Hawk and a bunch of Air Force airplanes. But an attack, because we have a limited number of resources, an attack probably would not go on for hours and hours. So it may be that he would time that toward the end of the attack. That would be my best judgment, my best guess on that.
All right. We want to go back to David French now in Washington. David?
Of course, the White House briefing at 2:15 probably would not occur if the attack were still underway. Let's go for more now to the Pentagon and Jamie McIntyre.
Well, David, a military source tells CNN that, in fact, the attack on Iraq is over, and that is, in fact, why White House spokesman Marlon Fitzwater will be briefing the media just shortly.